guys actually get that one? It's like not like this spelling. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So today, welcome everyone. Today we are hosting Mrs. Amanda Lynn, the Director of Admissions for the new UT Tyler Medical School. She is so graciously giving her time to us today to talk to us as aspiring medical students and incoming applicants to the school. So everyone please give a round of applause to Mrs. Lynn.
Thank you so much. So, as mentioned, my name is Amanda Lynn, and I'm the Director of Admissions for the new UT Tyler School of Medicine. Thank you guys for having me. I see some familiar faces, some new faces, so it's great to meet all of you guys. So today, I just want to give a brief introduction to our program, a little bit about the admissions stats, and a little bit about the curriculum, and then also have plenty of time, hopefully, for some questions. So you guys don't be shy. Holler at me, let me know if you have any questions, okay? So a little bit about our team. So within the admissions office, there is myself, Director of Admissions, Dr. Abron, who is our Associate Dean for Admissions, and then Dr. Brigham Willis, who is our founding dean. Hopefully this slide will grow a little bit within the next few months, days, weeks. We are looking on hiring a couple more folks to help us out in the admissions world. So fingers crossed, I'm very excited to have some help. So first, why do we need a medical school in East Texas? So there's a lot of dire health outcomes within our region, and we have a couple of slides here in a minute that's going to show some of those health outcomes. And as a native East Texas, it's kind of scary to see some of this stuff. Also, AMSA has been showing that there's going to be a great shortage of physicians by 2033, and you can see on here there's a wide range between 54 and 139,000. Which primarily those are going to be within your primary care and then your rural health communities. And then of course, we all know we need better access to health care, not only in Tyler, but then also our surrounding communities as well. So looking at those poor health outcomes. So if you think of East Texas as our region, we're about the size of West Virginia. And so if you were to rank us among other states and most of the health outcomes, we would be ranked between 47 and 51. Not good, right? We want to be lower number in this case, not higher number. Like golf, not basketball. Right? So life expectancy. So we have our great state of Texas here. On this chart, you can see the pink is going to be your lower number, so life expectancy of around 60, and then the greener we get, the higher we get in our life expectancy. And then if we look in East Texas, unfortunately, there is a lot of pink, and so our average life expectancy is around the 75-ish range, give or take, of course. And then if you look in Central Texas, West Texas, and even down south, you're going to see more of that green. So they have those higher life expectancies. So who are we? What is our mission? What is our vision? I'm not going to read the slides to you guys because it's all available on our website, medicine.uttyler.edu. But one of the things that you'll notice throughout both is community service, community relationships. We want to work with our community. So our local students, our local community members, our local community leaders, when building our school of medicine, we want input from everybody to see what areas of medicine do we need, how do we grow, and then how do we work together to help with the health outcomes that we're seeing within our region. So I do want to point out our mission is fourfold. So it's that community engagement, education, research, and then of course clinical as well. So a little bit about our medical program. I know you guys know UT Tyler, but some of you may not be as familiar with the Health Science Center, which is out on 271. So the Health Science Center is going to be our temporary home for the School of Medicine. We'll be out there until about 2025. And then we will be moving into our brand new building that's actually going to be built. They haven't broken new ground or anything yet, but it will be over by the main UT Health Hospital that's in Midtown. Okay. I don't know about you guys, but I'm not familiar with Midtown. Like I've lived here basically my whole life, and just recently this whole new Midtown thing started coming up. So it's still hard for me to say. So Midtown. So a little bit about the Health Science Center is that in our program is that we've received so much support from our community. It's been great. Hopefully, if you're following us on social media or even UT Tyler on social media, you'll see the different donations that we've received. Our entire first cohort that will start in 2023 received a scholarship. They have tuition and fees paid for all 4 years, and then also goes for their second class as well. So our goal is to minimize as much of our students' debt as we possibly can, and scholarships and our community support is definitely a way that we're going to do that. We do have other scholarships that will be available to be able to help with cost of living as well, so keep that in mind. And then we've gotten donations to go towards mental health research and all sorts of different areas. So as we continue to grow and to make connections with our community, we're hoping to see more and more scholarships come in, some more and more donations to come in to help offset the cost that it is to go to medical school, as well as the research that we want to have within our program. At the Health Science Center, they have a clinical base, basic sciences. There is a ton of research that goes on in there. And if you talk from maybe your older generations, again, I use air quotes for that because old is different to everybody, right? You may be familiar, you may hear that some folks will refer to the hospital out on 271 as the TB hospital or as the lung hospital. That's where it was founded. So we were founded at Camp Fanning. And then it moved on and we did TB research there and then moved to the Chest Hospital. And then we became a part of the UT system back in 1977. Okay, so a lot of times it's still referred to as the TB hospital or as the Chest Hospital. So if you hear that, it is out at 271. There has been GME, which is that graduate medical education. So there's residencies and fellowship programs going on out at the 271 campus for several years now, since like the 80s. And there are several programs that are out there. And so we'll talk a little bit about those, but there's a strong partnership. Primarily our residents are currently coming from UTMB down in Galveston or UT Southwestern, okay? And then our goal is to have enough residency spots available in East Texas to be able to have all of our students stay in this region to be able to do those residency programs should you choose to. Because our goal, again, is to have you guys come here, go to school, go to residency here, practice here, right? It goes all the way back to those dire health needs. And then, of course, we have a merged operation between the 271 campus and this campus now. We're all one big happy family, right? And then, of course, there's no other medical schools within our region. So admissions, the key to everything is recruiting the right kind of students to be the right kind of doctors for our program. Not all programs are created equal. So I highly encourage whenever you're getting ready to go through the application process, do some research on the programs that you're applying for and look to see if they meet the needs and the desires that you have as a physician. And then also remember, whenever you're applying through TMDSAS, which is the application server, there is an easy button to say, I want to apply to every single school in the state of Texas. So just be aware if you click that button, you may hear from all of us. For our program specifically, we're looking for those who are community focused, dedicated to East Texas, passionate about preventative care and system level changes, and then also primary care oriented. Admissions requirements. So this is looking specifically at 2022, 2023. The dates might slightly change for the upcoming years. And so I always recommend you visit our website, medicine.uttyler.edu, for the latest information on these dates. But for this year, for those who want to start next summer, the deadline to submit your primary application to TMDSA is on November 1st. And then what we'll do, once your application goes through a verification process, then it's sent to us. Then we do a preliminary review, and then we send invites to complete the secondary application. So not all applicants will receive the secondary. That varies between school and school, so just be aware of that. And then college transcripts, TMDSAS will actually request official copies of all of your college transcripts to be sent after an acceptance offer has been made. The essays and MCAT scores are all due by November 15th, as well as Casper and Duet. Some of those who may have seen this presentation or been visiting our website will notice that we did push back our deadline for Casper and Duet. It was originally on October 13th, but we opted to push it back to match the deadline for our secondary application. And then, of course, the completion of the prereqs. What are the prereqs, you ask? There you go. So the prereq is going to be 11 hours of biology, which 2 of those must be lab, 8 hours of physics, 2 of those must be lab. Chemistry, there's a little couple of options that you have with chemistry. It's a total of 12 hours. 3 of those must be lab. 3 hours of biochemistry, 3 hours of English, so like English Literature 1 works here, and then also 3 hours of statistics. So at UT Tyler, here's some of the classes you can take. So TMDSAS has a pre-prescribed course listing for pretty much every single school. They have in-state and out-of-state. They have university, community college. They have private and public. And so this website up at the top here, what you do is you go to that website and then you find your school, and then every single school, for the most part, I can't say 100%, will have a list like this. And so what this is TMDSAS has said that, yes, these are the courses that we know will be accepted for school of medicine prerequisites. I always encourage students to look at this list when they're filling out their application in their secondary. And here's the reason why. So when you get your secondary application, there's a part of it that's going to ask you for your prereqs. Do you have the minimum requirements? Couple of things to note on there. One, we are not looking for every single biology class that you've taken. We are looking for the 11 hours needed for the prereqs. Okay, so keep that in mind. And you don't have to submit, oh, I did 42 hours of chemistry. That's awesome. We will see that on your transcript, I promise, but it's not necessary to put all of those when you're doing your secondary application, okay? And then also within your secondary, when you put in all of your prereqs, it will ask, yes, I feel comfortable that I've met all my prerequisite courses, or no, I want to have my prerequisites reviewed by an admissions committee member. I will give you a hint and tip of advice. If you select you want to have your prerequisites reviewed by the committee member, 2 things happen. One is you're not taken to the essay portion of the secondary. The prereq evaluation must happen before you go to that secondary essay. 2, there's a delay. So our admissions committee is made up of community members as well as physicians, and they try to stay up on it as much as possible, but there could possibly be a delay. So keep that in mind. So you can always look at this list. Hey, yeah, I got all these courses. Hey, yeah, I know I met my prereqs. Hey, yeah, let's move on to those essay questions. Okay, easy. I can't tell you how many times I look at this list and look at it working with a student, and I'm like, you didn't need a request to have your prereqs reviewed. You have them all. And so saves time for everybody. All right, so now we have submitted everything, our primary application, we've submitted the secondary application, we've submitted Casper and Duet scores, which we'll talk a little bit more about those in just a minute. We have a complete application. What happens now? For our program, we take a holistic approach, and so we review all aspects of the application. Okay, so GPA and MCAT is not rated higher than our other pillars. Okay, so we have 4 pillars that we look at. The first is the API pillar, or the Academic Preparation Index. And so what this one does, it does look at your MCAT, it does look at your GPA, but it does look at a ton of other things that are surrounding your academics. From there, what we do is we give each applicant a flag, basically. And that flag is what is sent to the admissions committee. Our admissions committee will never see your GPA, and they will never see your MCAT scores. Okay. And the reason why we are doing that is that studies have shown a couple of things. One, an admissions committee will fight over between what is the difference in between a 510 MCAT and a 507 MCAT. So it's nothing. It's, there's no significant difference in between the 2 MCAT scores. And so we don't want our admissions committee to focus solely on that MCAT. and solely on that GPA. We want the admissions committee to look at all of our applicants as a whole. Okay. Two, so when thinking about our MCAT scores and when thinking about our GPA requirements, what are those minimum requirements? Okay, so on your MCAT, how many of you guys have taken the MCAT already? A few of you guys, okay. So for those of you who have and who have not, when you got your MCAT scores, you'll notice you have a couple of different scores, right? You have the score and then a score for each of the different subjects, and then you have a confidence band. That confidence band leaves room for human error because there is human graders within the MCAT. When we're looking at MCAT, we look at the confidence band cutoff, and we're looking for a minimum of a 492. Okay. GPA. When we're looking at GPA, we focus on your last 30 hours of your biology, chemistry, physics, and math. So that BCPM. And we're looking for a minimum of a 3.0 for that. The reason why we have chosen to focus on the last 30 hours is sometimes when a student is brand new to college, it's a completely different experience for folks, right? I don't know how to study. Oh, I'm going to be able to do what I did in high school and do great. Maybe not, right? So we look at that last 30 hours when you're in those major classes, and that's what we're focusing on for our GPA. So 492, 3.0. Now, AAMC data has shown that looking at these specific requirements, that at least 95% greater than 95% of students will complete a medical school. Okay. Now, I will tell you, looking at our reports, looking at the data we pulled, we are seeing higher GPAs and higher MCATs than those two requirements. Now, once our class has been finalized for the incoming class for 2023, we will post statistics onto our website. I don't have any statistics because we don't have any students. Okay, so keep an eye on that. We will post that data and you can kind of get an idea of the average MCAT score and of the average GPA that we are receiving. But those are the minimum requirements. Our next pillar, our geographic ties. We want students with connections to East Texas. Okay, again, we want you to stay here. We want you to do residency here. We want you to practice here. And so statistics have shown that if you have a tie to this region, then you are more likely to stay here. Okay, so how do we show ties to East Texas? Of course, attending UT Tyler is definitely one of them. But we look at a wide range within your primary application to see if we can find connections to East Texas. And then students who may not have that strong of a connection to East Texas, we highly encourage you to talk about them within your secondary application. So on this chart, we have casted a wide range, right? Currently, this is our first year, so we casted a wide range. Now, could this change for years to come? Absolutely. The admissions committee is already talking about it. I don't know what it will look like, but for this year, this is what we're going with. Our blue counties are going to be our East Texas county, and then those gray counties are going to be those East Texas adjacent counties. Okay. Pillar 3. So pillar 3 is going to look at our mission-centered index. So this is where we look at socioeconomic information. This is where we look at your experiences, your leadership, community service. Our goal is that we want a class that represents all of East Texas. And we feel that by pulling this data, that will hopefully get us to that range. So pillar 4 is where Casper and Duet come in. So Casper and Duet are both through, it's called the Altus assessment. So if you hear of Altus, that is Casper and Duet. So Casper is a situational judgment test. So for Casper, what you do is you will watch a video, and then within that video, it will ask you some very tough questions. And then from there, you have a few minutes to be able to reflect, and then you have to give a response. Some of the responses are recorded responses, some of them are written out responses. It's all very timed, and you do this several times, okay? On average, students take about 90 minutes to complete Casper. You have up to 120. Okay, you can see on here the items that Casper looks at. So it looks at the collaboration, it looks at empathy, professionalism, resilience, self-awareness, things like that. So on the Altus website, and if you go to our website, medicine.uttyler.edu, you will be able to find more information about Altus as well as some test scenarios and things like that. You become a little bit more familiar with it. So an example One of the questions is, there's a father who comes up to a retail store and he wants to return a toy, but he doesn't have his receipt. But you're a new customer service folk behind the counter, and your store policy is, I can't return the toy without a receipt. I can't give you a cash refund without a receipt, right? The father then goes and explains that he needs to refund so he can have money to be able to pay for a prescription for his child. What would you do? So those are kind of the questions that it asks. Okay, so some of them are very difficult. So I do recommend that you take a look at the Altus assessments and kind of prepare for whenever you take Casper. That way you're just aware of what some of the scenarios may look like. They change all the time, so that probably won't be a scenario that you actually see. That's an example that we were given. But just to be aware of it and just to have a little bit more understanding of what Casper is all about. Okay. The other side of that is duets. So like Casper, duet also looks at collaboration, it looks at resiliency, self-awareness, things like that. What duet is duet is a value alignment assessment. Now duet is a lot quicker, it takes about 15 minutes to do, okay? When you do duet, you will see a list of questions and it will say, would you rather A or B, A or B, A or B, and you work your way down. And then what we have done is we have taken a duet as well, and we've built our profile. And what it does is it just matches it. It's like a match.com for medical school, right? And so it looks to see what are your values that you're looking for in a medical school compared to what ours are in having a medical school. And it just does a match for those. So it looks at education, it looks at research, it looks at the classroom, it looks at the environment and things like that. It looks at a whole variety of things, but it takes about 15 minutes to complete as well. Okay. All right, now we are done the holistic review. We have invited you for an interview. So excited. You have assigned your interview date. You're ready to go. What happens now? All right, so interview day. Our interviews are in person. We are keeping an eye out on everything to make sure the world doesn't go crazy and we have to transition online. If we must, we must. But thankfully, we have had 4 interview rounds and all of them have been in person. So our interview cycle runs from September to January, and we use multiple mini interviews or MMIs. So what is a multiple mini interview? Multiple mini interview is like academic speed dating. Okay, so you go up to a door, you read a scenario, you hear a bell, like it's a real bell, you go into the room, you have 8 minutes with the interviewer, you hear another bell, you leave. That is when that scenario is over. Even if you have 10 more minutes worth to say, guess what? It's over. Then you have to go to the next and the next and the next as you work your way through the circuit. Okay. Now I'm going to tell you in the MMI, it's not going to be one of those questions. Okay, your patient has this, this, and this. What do they have? It's not going to ask you that because we know, well, guess what? You haven't gone to medical school yet, right? So you can't diagnose, right? But it asks different situational. Some of them are hypothetical. Some of them are actual things that have happened in the medical profession or could happen. And so it wants you to think, it wants to see your series of thinking through the problem. When you're reading the scenario, it will also ask, it'll tell you, when you go in, discuss this with the interviewer, okay? So when you go into the room, a couple of things to be aware of. Your interviewer will be taking notes. Okay, and that is to be able to reflect your conversation appropriately. Okay, so I know that's nerve-wracking for some, but I want you to know that they're doing that so they can accurately reflect everything. Okay, because there's a lot that can be said within 8 minutes. Also, keep in mind, and with an MMI, the interviewers cannot provide any feedback. With an MMI, it is a very scripted Q&A that they are allowed to ask. There's certain things that they are and are not allowed to ask. They are not going to say, quiet, tell me why you want to go to medical school. That's not the purpose of an MMI. Okay, so just keep those few things in mind. MMI is also an opportunity to make multiple good first impressions. What we have seen is that when you first start, you're super nervous. Oh my gosh, I don't know what to expect. But as you continue through the circuit, you become less and less nervous. And that we have seen that already in the reports that we have gotten from our interviewers. Okay. There's also a group activity. I can't say a whole lot about the group activity, just know that you'll be working in a group, right? Be prepared to work with a group. Within our interviews, one other thing that we do offer is an informal meet and greet. The informal meet and greet is the evening before your scheduled interviews, and it's over at the 271 campus in a couple different locations. And this is a time for our candidates to bring 1 or 2 guests on a campus with us. And you meet school of medicine faculty and staff, you meet residents, you meet some other community members as well. And it's just a time to be able to ask questions, to become a little bit familiar with us, to see that we're people and not robots. Okay, it's very informal. At that time, I may ask, McKenna, why are you interested in going to medical school? Right, that's an appropriate time to be able to ask those kind of questions, not during the interview. The meet and greets are not scored. Okay, it's just to help ease any of those nerves that our candidates may have. And I'm hoping that we're hearing good results from the meet and greets. The students seem to really enjoy them. So we plan to continue those, hopefully moving forward. Okay, but that's our interview. Now, after interviews, what happens? Your work as a candidate is done. Ours is definitely not. Okay, from there, we prepare your file. We send it to our admissions committee for review. When they're doing that review, it's holistic again. So they go back to your application. They review the different pillars. They review letters of recommendation. They review your experiences. They review everything. They review your essay questions, your personal statement, all of that. And then they also take a look at what happened with the MMIs and during the interview day and what happened within the group activity. So it's a true holistic review that is blinded. Our admissions committee does not know your name, does not know your GPA, does not see your picture, and that is done on purpose. We wanted to keep it as unbiased as possible. You may never know anybody on the admissions committee, and the admissions committee may not know you until you're in a seat in our class, right? If they're a faculty member. And that's all done by design, guys, okay? All right. We've been admitted into the program. We've said, yes, we're coming. We are ready to start classes. What now? Okay. So our program, we feel that, this statement is a great quote. Learn to see, learn to hear, learn to feel, learn to smell, and know that by practice alone, you can become an expert. And the idea of this is to get you engaged in your curriculum, to keep you active. We're not going to do what I'm doing here now. We're not going to lecture to you all day long. Okay, you're going to be working within teams, you're going to be working within groups, and you're going to be doing some case-based studies. You will have in-classroom requirements. You will have homework to do before you come into class, and then you have classroom stuff that you'll have to do along with clerkships and along with interprofessional educations and things like that. So very busy schedule, but it's fun. Hopefully, you don't want me to not to do that. But hopefully, y'all think that's exciting. So our curriculum is broken into 3 phases. It's a 4-year program that's broken into 3 phases. The phase 1 is your scientific foundation phase, which is about 18 months. This is where most of your didactic classwork is going to come into play. Okay. We do have clerkship that's included within the first 18 months, and we'll look at that in a minute. Phase 2 is 12 months long, and that is your clinical experiences, so your clerkships. Phase 3 is your clinical practice, and then also scholarships, which is about another 18 months. And then after that, you graduate and go on to residency. So this is the curriculum. Okay, the curriculum is in the building phases for sure, but this is what it looks like. And this is what we are using going forward. Again, for your program, different phases. So you can see within phase 1, you've got your ENT certification. So all of our students will go through ENT certification. Why are we doing that? That is because Dr. Willis, our dean, has, for instance, made a comment when he went through medical school, he did not feel like he could make a difference in a patient's life until about year 3. We don't want that for our students. So we do ENT certification. You will go on ride-alongs. You will be a part of saving a patient's life within the first 6 weeks of the program. Okay. And we want that so you can have that clinical experience. This is part 1 of in some cases for going through an illness or going through an injury or things like that, right? It's going into the ambulance, heading to the doctor, heading to the hospital, wherever the case may be. So other parts of phase one, I have to look, but I can't see that. There's seasons, balance, nutrition, regulation, defense, invaders, and uniqueness. So these are fun names, okay? So for instance, invaders is gonna talk a lot about infection, right? In major body a little bit, talks about disease. Within each of these, there's not a renal portion, there's not a cardiac, there's not a GI. It is all built and all merged into one, okay? And that is because, you know, if you learn about renal, and then guess what, way over here, you learn about cardiac and you, well, how does that affect the renal? Right, it's all connected, we're all connected, right? And so that's why it's happening, it's all overlapping, all entwined within each other. Pathology is included in every single one of these, pharmacology is included within all of these as well. Okay. Couple of things to see is that we do have built-in brakes. So the bright blue brake that's there in the middle, you can think about that as being a winter brake, okay? The bright blue brake on this side of the slide is roughly spring break, okay? We are hoping to align with the university, but that may not always be the case. It just kind of depends on how the schedule works out. Our accreditation body has very strict requirements on what we need to do within the classroom. And so, we have built-in breaks. I just can't say, yes, they're gonna be exactly when YouTube probably goes, or TISD, or whatever the case may go, right? Another thing is, after each of the small classes, we'll call them a class, like for instance, looking at balance, you can see there's an assessment at the end. The way those work is a Monday, you come in, sorry, it's on a Monday, you have to stay all weekend, it is what it is, right? But you take this assessment on balance, say you do fantastic on it, guess what? You're off the rest of the week. But say you take it, you don't do so good, something happened, you weren't able to get your studying in, or a concept wasn't clicking right. We will work with you on doing remediation with some faculty members, and then you will retake that assessment on that Friday. And then that next Monday, then that's when we go into the next topic. Okay. So there are a few longitudinal classes. There's one that's called TOPS. It's teaching outstanding physician skills. So teaching you how to be a physician. There is IPE, interprofessional education. That is when you'll be working with those within other areas of healthcare. So nurses, pharmacists, physical therapists, things like that, right? We have to work together as a team, you know, used to, and within the medical field, it was very siloed. But now everyone is seeing the importance of us all working together as a team, okay? You'll also work with other residents within IPE as well, or interprofessional education. And then PHSS, the system level, public health and system levels, right? So those are longitudinal as well. Another cool thing I want to point out in here is if you look past the first big blue break, so that is in the middle of your nutrition, you'll see another longitudinal community and rural medicine clerkship. So we're going to start sending you out in the community, say January of your first year. So for us, orientation is the last week of June, classes start the first week of July, and May you're out in the clinic. Okay, and that is going to be Tyler and our surrounding areas. It's going to be all within East Texas. Okay, and so you can see that that clerkship is a longitudinal and it goes all the way throughout the program. And so you'll be rotating through you. So now we're on to phase 2, and phase 2 is where you have your 4 required clerkships. So there's medicine, surgery, OB-GYN and pediatrics, and then psychiatry, neurology, and inpatient family medicine. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll take your class of 40, we'll break you up into groups of 10, and then that's kind of how you'll rotate through. You know, not everybody will be together in medicine, not everybody will be together in surgery, so we'll mix and match that. And then from there, that is when you prepare for phase 3. For the preparation for phase 3 is the USLME, whatever that is, that's called. Yeah. Yeah, y'all done your research. I knew it. So what we are planning to do is you guys will take phase 1 and phase 2 together. Statistics are showing that taking it together has a higher pass rate. Okay, and so you have a gap here, and that is for study time. That is for if you need to do any remediation with a faculty member. They haven't fully developed how that is going to look, but there will be time for you to study individually, and then also time to study with faculty members and to answer any of those questions. And then you'll take that and then transition into phase 3. So then phase 3, there's some required clerkships that you will take, and then there's also some electives. This is where you can really specialize in the area that you want to go into. Say, for instance, you were debating in between surgery and psychiatry. Pretty different, right? But you can use these elective hours to do rotation in surgery and to do a rotation in psychiatry to see, okay, this is really what I want to do. This is where I want to do my residency in. Okay, so we have some flexibility in there. And then there's also time for scholarship, and that will be being able to do research. Research is built throughout our program. So this is a great opportunity for some research. Being published before you graduate would be cool. Maybe being able to present your research at a nationally known conference, something like that. This will also be time where you are preparing for residency interviews, right? And then graduation and then residency. So you have 4 years with us, and then you're still not done. You still have a little bit of time based on the specialty that you want to go into. Will determine how long your different residency programs are. So this is some of the things that we've talked about. For instance, the EMT certification. So the first 4 weeks, that infield training. So the biomedicine, science, and therapeutic, those are our case-based studies that are included within the curriculum. The structure lab, fun fact, so over at the 271 campus, there used to be surgery, right? But when the mergers all happened with Ardent, they opted for all the surgery to go to the mid hospital. And so the surgery wing at 271 has been sitting empty for the last 2-3 years, right? All of that is being converted to school medicine state. And so it is currently in renovations right now. So when I get to visit with students, when we have students here for interviews, we get to give a little mini tour. And then the idea is for that to be done in March. And then hopefully we'll have second look day after it's done. And you can get a real life look of what that space is going to look like. It's going to be really cool. I'm excited to see what it looks like. And then we talked a little bit about the teaching outstanding physician skills talks. That's where you get your examination, your professionalism. How do you be a doctor? You've graduated, you've opened your primary care. Now what do I do? This is where talks can help you out with that. And then the public health and system sciences, look at public population, preventative care, and things like that. Interprofessional education, talked a little bit about that. And then also this community and rural medicine clerkship starts in January of phase 1. Here are the residency programs that are currently available within UT Health. So there are some at the main campus, which is in that Midtown area, Pittsburgh, Athens, the Health Science Center, and then this list will continue to grow. So you have a couple that are planning to start in July of 2023, and there are already a few out there that are going through the approval process. And once approved, they will be added to this list. And so you can see there is a wide range of residencies that are currently available within, that's UT Health. That's no other program, that's just UT Health. Another fun fact that I recently found out, thinking for those who may be interested in psychiatry. So UT Health has a great behavioral health unit. It is the only one currently in Tyler that will accept insurance. All others are privately owned and so very expensive. And so they are always looking for folks to come in who are interested in child and adolescent and adult psychiatry. They're on a wait list about 6 months out because of the crazy cost that is associated with those private areas. So once you're admitted into the program, you know, we did our holistic admissions. We also want to offer holistic support services. So that's everything from academic support to well-being to career planning, to student engagement, accessibility and accommodation, diversity, equity, and inclusion, one-on-one mentoring from our faculty, small class sizes. We have a class size of 40 for at least the first 2 to 3 years, and then we'll reevaluate from there. And then financial support. So again, our goal is to offer as many scholarships as that we can, so to be able to limit the debt for our students. But then when you graduate and you become a physician, hopefully you'll have little to no debt, and then you'll have a nice paycheck what do I do with it, right? And so that's kind of that financial literacy. Or if you do end up having to take scholarship or loans or whatever the case may be, how do you go about balancing that? You know, how do I go from being a full-time student to not having to hopefully pay back my loan, to graduating, I'm getting paid, and now I have to start paying back loans. What's the best way to do that? Interest rates and all of that fun jazz stuff. Okay, so that's kind of that idea. Dr. Crystal Rice is our Associate Dean for Student Affairs, and she has some really cool ideas that are gonna go along with the student support, as well as, like she's talking about dividing the class and how this think Harry Potter, but not too much Harry Potter. But then there'll be competition. So like, if you volunteer, your house will end so many points. And then at the end of the year, we get to have a party, like decorate the hall in orange or green or whatever the colors are, right? So that'll be a lot of fun. So we want to have fun while you're going through this education process, right? It
Amen.
can't be just, right? We gotta have some fun. We gotta party a little bit, not too hard. And safely, right? But we wanna have fun, and we want you to have fun too, okay? What questions do you guys have? Oh, yes, sir.
So I know the School of Medicine is focusing on primary care, and it's been a little bit since I looked into this, but I think there are some medical schools that offer a 3-year long degree if they know they're going into primary care or family medicine. Do you know if UT Tyler's offering anything of that sort?
Currently, no, we're not.
Okay,
Our program is doing 4 years, and that's why we are getting, started, of course, and then from there, what we can do is we can reevaluate. And something that we're also talking about doing is being able to offer an ND PhD combined degree offering in a few years, but as of right now. The question, yes, ma'am.
Are there any pending emergency medicine residencies in the region?
Or kind of thing, I know there's three that they're talking about, one of them is palliative care, one of them is hospice, which is. One of them is cardiovascular. It wouldn't surprise me if that's definitely something. We have one. We have Tom Warren in Tyler, so it wouldn't surprise me if that's something. I can't speak for people on it, though. Sure. But if you go to our website, that's what I used to talk about we always have them posted. Okay.
So you said you're looking for applicants with a connection to East Texas. How do you quantify that?
Yeah, so there's several things within the primary application that we look at. So we look at everything from where you grew up to where you went to college to what is your permanent and non-address right now. So we look at the different counties, and then we look at the cities. Yes,
how long are the summer breaks?
they will range. Our 18 months is an 18-month straight through program, but we do have those belts and breaks. So the 18 months is good. Yes.
What electives are y'all offering for year 4?
So that part is still being built. We've got to get through phase 1 first, of course. But I know our curriculum is currently discussing those. I had another question from a candidate about looking at working with drug abuse patients, if that was going to be elective. So I have a couple of questions out about electives to our curriculum committee. And once I get answers, if you will put your name and email on my list, I'll be sure to get that out to you.
Mine was kind of similar. Is there going to be an opportunity for possible away rotations? I know we're trying to keep people here, but I know that we have some specialties that you do have to drive to Dallas for or drive to Houston. So is that going to be an option during your elective period?
They're talking about making it an option. Another one is like, for instance, the VA clinic. Well, that's Shreveport, is the closest one. And so they are talking about options of making those away. I don't know how many you would be able to do within your rotation, but there are definitely options available.
I know you said there was some time allotted for research in
Yes.
phase 3.
Mhm.
What about for phase 1 and 2?
Yeah. There's built-in research requirements for phase 1 and 2.
So if we're doing research currently at UT Tyler, would we be able to somehow manage continuing that through?
Yeah, definitely. So say, for instance, you have a passion for cancer research, whatever kind you might have, right? Then you can definitely grow into that within the medical school. As of right now, the idea is to make the research very open to what our students want and to the connectivity that we can have with you and then faculty over at the School of Medicine. Yeah, yes, sir.
give me an example of some of the activities that we'll be doing for that clerkship that you were mentioning before.
So for instance, you might be in a rural and community clerkship in Athens, right? So you will be doing rounds with a physician or with a group of physicians based on how that particular hospital or clinic works. You may be presenting a patient to a physician to prepare them for when they're coming into the room to meet with a patient. It varies based on the setup of the different hospital. Now, one thing to know is that our preceptors will know that, okay, this is a first year medical student, so they may not know everything, right? And so I would always encourage if a preceptor asks you a question, you can always say, you know, I'm not sure on that, but I will find the answer and I'll get back to you, right? And then you can build on that, doing some research, asking around things like that. Don't just sit there, I don't know, you know, but they will know that you're a first year medical student, and so you won't have all the answers.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, ma'am.
So I noticed in the curriculum,
Mhm.
you mentioned the first little bit of starting your first year,
Mhm.
is the EMT
Yes.
certification.
Mhm.
Is it beneficial for people to apply if they already have that certification?
Absolutely. So for those candidates who already are EMT certified, you will be helping teach
Okay.
the class. Mhm. Yep. So, yes.
Are
And I'll
there,
catch you.
are there any formal mentoring opportunities for like students to be like directly plugged into a physician outside of the clinic?
So while you're pre-med or.
While you're a med student,
Yeah, so there will be mentor programs and mentorship set up. We have great relationships, obviously, with UT Health that will be in the classroom and outside of the classroom. And then Dr. Willis is also working with building relationships with Chris's, as well as the other independently owned clinics within our region. Again, I'll get right back to you. Yes, ma'am.
Question about in-person interviews. I know that they're, the meeting interviews, but are we allowed to have a small notebook with us?
Absolutely. So fun. I'm glad you asked that. So whenever you go in for your MMIs, there'll be a room for you to put all of your belongings, and then you'll be given a clipboard with some paper, a pen, and then a list of labels. A label just has your name on it, and you'll give it to your interviewer. But you can write, you can be, I absolutely hate this scenario if you want to. And you can. I will let you know that none of your notes are graded. They will be shredded at the end of the day. So the admissions committee won't say that. So if you really hate a scenario, you could write it. It would be a waste for 2 minutes. But
interview room smell.
yeah. Interview are from patient rooms. So they might. There's questions I can hear.
I was gonna ask if Dr. Willis is doing at any of the UT facilities right now.
No, before he became dean, he was a practicing critical care pediatrician. But since he became dean, we have kept him very busy. And so he's not currently practicing, but I will tell you, he will be in the classroom. Mhm. Yes, sir.
Do you have any sort of early insurance program?
Yeah, great question. So we are in the process of building an early insurance program with UT Tyler as of right now. Dr. Aaron is working with Dr. Mason to put together an MOU on what that looks like for our program, and then for you to make sure we're meeting everybody's needs. The idea is to have that launched next fall. It'll be about a 2-year program based on where you are in your studies. We'll have some flexibility there. Is there?
So the Casper, I know there's a video portion and a typed out portion.
Yes.
And from my understanding is that not all universities are looking at the video portion. Will UT Tyler be looking at the video portion?
So for us, we're not then, I don't ever see your Casper scores, but so what has happened is your Casper submission, I'm hoping I'm saying this right, is sent to 3 graders. The graders are all around the United States, right? Fun fact, Altus is out of Canada, but the graders are US graders. I don't know if that makes a difference or anybody, but hey, very good. Those 3 graders will submit their scores, and then we are sent a percentile. And then if there's any red flags or anything like that, we're sent that information. But as far as your actual responses, we do not see that.
So currently not like a goal for what protocol to be in for School of Medicine?
I mean, I don't really have any statistics to go about because I don't have any statistics. But that's something that we could definitely look into posting into our statistical analysis once we have. Good question. Yes, sir.
For the early insurance program, do you apply next fall or will you be in the program next fall?
You start applying, so we have to get our MOU finalized, and once that's finalized, we can launch that to our UT Tyler students. And then you can start applying, and you would go through a similar interview portion, and then if it offered admissions into the EAP, that's, 1 to 2 years. Including in there would be MCAT prep, there would be panel discussions, there would be opportunities for shadowing and things like that. So, and then that would lead you straight into medical school. It's a direct line to our medical program. Dr. Willis would love for us to be able to hold 10 seats for UT Tyler students within our EAP program. Keep that in mind. Is it?
What's like the ideal application that you would like what, like if you're looking at an undergrad student and they're applying, what would be like the most important thing you would look for?
Yeah, definitely. I would say a well-rounded student. We want, of course, your academics are important, but we also want to see what experiences you've had. We also understand for those of you who may not have a ton of experiences because you had to work to support a family, we understand that as well. And there is opportunity to speak about that within the application. So I would say well-rounded. And always remember when you're writing your application, it's okay to brag on yourself a little bit during that part. Don't forget, if you think a experience, even though it meant a ton to you, is super minute, include it. Let us know about it. We want to hear all the awesome things that you guys have done. Okay. What other question? No.
So I know a lot of schools don't do a ton of pre-match offers, and I am under the impression that you guys are doing quite a few. What's your intention behind that?
We want a Texan, and so, what we're seeing now is the later we get through the application pool, the less connections to East Texas we're seeing. And so, we want to be apparent to our students, and we want to be transparent to our students. And so if our admissions committee is like, man, this is an awesome candidate, why not go ahead and let you know early? Sooner rather than later. That way you have more time to prep. Get ready for June. It'll be here before you know it. Yes, ma'am.
So on the secondary, for the prerequisites,
Yes.
if you have a graduate degree, I noticed that those didn't populate
Correct.
for that. Is that a case where you would normally have it reviewed, or would you just go with your undergraduate?
Yeah, so the application portal does not pull graduate coursework. It only pulls that undergraduate coursework. And that's because the prerequisites can be completed within undergrad. And they're the most, I won't say basic, but kind of your basic. They're not as specialized as you do in your graduate school. Now, if you have a class that you're like, man, I really want to include this in my prerequisites, because please know we will still see it. We'll get your transcript. You can always use the future enrollment checkbox, and in the text you can include I took biology. I don't know if this is a real class, but 5622 in fall of 2018. I don't know from UT Tyler. We will look at that specifically, and we can consider counting that towards the prereq. But usually it's all undergraduate classes that students will use.
So the reason why I ask is sometimes those grades in your undergrad may be a little bit rougher than your graduate grades. So those grades in that secondary application prereqs, are those gonna be factored in?
No, it's the last 30 that we look at. Yeah. So if you make lots of fees, it's okay in those first, that first year, it's that last 30 that we look at. There's no fees rest.
So if someone hasn't included their bachelor's yet, can they still apply to have all the prerequisites and the impacts for
So technically, yes, but it's not even recommended. It would be recommended to have your degree. Questions?
So is tuition covered for the first year and second year, or just first year?
Yep, our first and second year currently have that scholarship for all 4 years tuition. Let me get her, no, get right back.
Sure.
So based off of her question about the bachelor's degree, if you're gonna have it completed before the school starts, is that? It's okay, you can go ahead and still. apply.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, because well, students currently, enrolled in classes while they're still going through the application process, that's totally fine. We'll just get final transcripts from you, once everything is complete.
You mentioned student wellness in your
Yeah.
presentation. I understand that some medical schools guarantee jobs separate from their studies,
Mhm.
either just to get income, and those are guaranteed by the med school. Does UT Tyler have anything like that?
Currently, no.
Okay.
But I do know our wellness program is still being developed. Our director of wellness actually starts on Monday, so
Great.
got a little bit of time for that one, but something to keep in mind for sure.
Awesome.
You had a question? No, I'm sorry. I thought I saw your hand raised. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Will the students have health insurance?
That is something I'll need to ask our director or our assistant dean for Champaign. But I can definitely ask and let you know. I know we're working with UT Tyler on the offering that they have here for students. But I'm not sure what that will look like for our school of medicine students and if there will be a fee associated with that. So I can ask her and I can get back with you on it. What other questions? All right, great. So I'm glad you took out your phone because I need a picture of you guys. So get together, let's take a picture. We're gonna post it on the social media.
Perfect.
You wanna like squeeze in towards the middle and then have her,
Yeah.
and then you can stand up.
You know
there.
what? If y'all want to, what?
In the message.
Oh, yes, yes. If y'all want to congregate right here, and y'all want to like organize and make it look pretty,
Yeah.
we'll get the picture with Mrs. Lynn in the front. Very back. My mistake. My-
Oh, look at her.